What are the issues that the advocate community deals with in trying to impart the meaning personalized medicine to patients? I think breast cancer is almost a poster child for personalized medicine. And I'll start with you, Elyse.
So personalized medicine is obviously the direction of the future and where we're headed, and all of these targeted therapies and what we're learning about the different molecules and the signatures about a woman's breast cancer or a man's breast cancer is really the future. We all know that. What does that mean in the advocate community? It raises more questions. We know breast cancer is complicated. It's not one disease, it's numerous diseases. The better we understand somebody's breast cancer, the more we can educate, women that come to all of our organizations, the questions that they need to ask their oncologists, their oncology team, so that they can learn more about their disease and understand the treatment recommendations that may be coming forward. That said, there are so many things still unanswered. So we still have to gauge that, and I think it's on our organization's sort of part to help people understand the importance of becoming more engaged, knowledgeable consumers of healthcare and understanding their disease, while also understanding that we don't know everything just yet.
I believe there's a disconnect between what we read in the media and the latest advance and how soon that's going to make it to the public, and it can be very challenging, I think, for patients who aren't at a meeting like this. There are the group of advocates who attend things like this, and we learn from these big meetings what's in the pipeline, but we have a better perspective perhaps on the fact that this may not be in the clinic next week. It may be in the paper today, but it may not even make it to the clinic. And our organizations often have that responsibility to help translate that to the public so that they don't lose hope that something's coming, but aren't demanding that it's there next week. So it is challenging. We look back to tamoxifen. That's ER is a targeted therapy, and we tend to forget, that it's not all that long ago we didn't have anything. Now we've got a number of targets that are improving people's lives, but that hope is out there of the whole genome. And if I have a recurrence, I went in there and I want to have that information and know exactly what to do to treat me, but we're not quite there yet.
I think from my point of view as a metastatic patient, I think the hard thing is when you first receive your diagnosis of metastatic disease, it is so overwhelming because you are, in one way or another, told it's not curable. Though most doctors will say, I will work with you to treat you as long as I can and give you the best quality of life. So your initial reaction on an emotional level is such grief and anger, and then what do I do? I've lost control. So I think our organization, the Metastatic Breast Cancer Network, attempts to help people get over that first shock and then to share with them some things that have already been said but that are not understood by patients initially, most patients, unless they've had a prior experience with early stage, is that breast cancer is not one disease, and that is not clear in the public. It is not one disease, and that what you want is the doctor to know as much about your tumor, because tumors are different, and as much about you, your general health, and other treatments you may have had in the past, so that the best treatment can be selected for the best outcome. And the way to do that, as our organization attempts to do, is to say obtain knowledge. Knowledge is power, so seek out places where there is good information. And I believe strongly that the more educated you are about your particular breast cancer, the better you can interact with your doctors, and I believe you have a chance of better outcomes.
What we recommend is that patients with metastatic disease, because it is so very complicated, that they seek out a cancer research center. And if they don't live close enough to visit one regularly, that they consider a trip to one at least for an opinion of the medical professionals there as to the best options for them and why, so that they can take those into consideration when they talk with their oncologist back home. And if they can be treated at such a center, then by all means, move their treatment to a center where they're really at the cutting edge of the research that's being out there. It's so complicated because you can take two metastatic patients that appear to have the same complicated profile, and they can react differently to drugs. I know it's very hard in the medical community to know exactly what to prescribe for a given individual. Amongst that circle of drugs or that collection of drugs that are relevant. But I do think the patient can best educate themselves, as Shirley said, by becoming better educated themselves on their own condition and then going to the experts and getting the best advice they can from them.
We're all knowledgeable, empowered advocates here. We're here. We're at San Antonio. Many of us, many times over. But I think as advocate organizations, we also need to do a better job trying to reach the countless other people that are in the community that don't know about us as groups and don't know, back to the question, about personalized medicine and understanding their breast cancer more. So some sort of outreach. I think we need to also remember the people that aren't here, the thousands and thousands of other people that we need to try to pull in some way, wherever they want to be met, and raise their level of knowledge.
I just want to make one little subtle thing, is that not everybody can make it to a cancer center, and it's critically important for those of us in cancer centers to make sure that knowledge and information and kind of wisdom is disseminated out. And we're working on very sophisticated computerized systems for doing that right now. I'm involved with a project, Memorial's involved with a project with IBM, the Watson computer, which can beat anybody at Jeopardy. You know, so it looks like it's actually thinking. And as a way of taking people with extraordinary clinical experience and being able to provide those kinds of experiences to the practicing physician in the community. So that's something that has to be worked out. There's one piece of Zen wisdom I've learned in all my years of practicing medicine, all right, and this is it, is that if anybody recommends anything to you, you got to ask, how do you know? You just don't say, thank you very much, you're a very charismatic person, I'm just going to follow you, to the ends of the earth. And you've got to ask for the science and where the defect is. And it's not just in the advocacy community or the breast cancer community, it's a very big defect throughout the world, but I know the American community real well, is ignorance of science. Mm-hmm. Right. Real deep, profound ignorance of what science is, what the scientific method is, what constitutes evidence. And you hear all the time when people ask me as a physician and scientist, do you believe in X? And I say, and I say, listen, I believe in God, I believe Mozart was a great composer, that's a belief system, all right? When it comes to science, show me the data, all right? Evidence has nothing to do with belief. And that you've got to actually see the data, and you can't see belief systems. And what I'm worried about in terms of the public is that they're going to be prey to people who are going to, put a lot of very fancy diagrams, on a website, and show what looks like scientific, things, and they don't have the data, and they're making claims that they really can't make. They word them very carefully so that they're not going to get into kind of legal trouble, but they can mislead people. And that's something that we have to really involve people in. And I think the key there is not only education, which everybody spoke about, but the key there is to be involved in the research that's going to really answer questions, really meaningful questions that really can help people and not just produce a nice poster or a talk here and a paper in Cell Science or Nature, but really help people. And that's really where the advocates can play a really important role. And I'd like to see more of the advocacy community involved in that section. I kind of like the anger is gone, and it's more we're partners and we're involved with you. That's a obviously it makes the meeting more pleasant. Yeah. But that anger was actually very productive.
As more advocates have become aware, patients have become aware of the differences in breast cancer types. There is a great anger, say, right now among triple-negative patients, that there is not a molecular one or maybe more molecular pathways that have been identified that can produce the results, say, that HER2 is. So I'm not disputing what you said. I think that the anger, though, and what I've seen as a consumer reviewer is that there have been more and more proposals for trying to tackle the issue of triple negative, but there needs to be more. So I'm with you.
Everybody should be angry.
Yes.
I mean, this is, you have pneumococcal pneumonia, you take this pill and go see me next year. That's where we have to go.
Yes.
Right.
And we don't have to say, hey, 5% improvement, 10% improvement, in 5 years. That's a surrogate marker of where we have to go. It's not really where we have to go. And I think the whole community really has to be pushed, in that direction.
Because there's so little research going into metastatic, and I've met plenty of researchers wanting to do the research. It's a matter of getting their proposals funded is a huge problem.
You just got to look at the numbers, okay? The National Cancer Institute budget about $5 billion roughly, that industry putting somewhere between $4 and $5 billion, and philanthropy, for another $1 billion. And this is not breast cancer, this is all cancers. All right? All cancers comes out to about $11 billion, all right? In that kind of range. Maybe somebody will quibble, it's 11.5 or 12 billion in that kind of range. So compare that to some of the other numbers you read in the newspaper about what Americans are willing to spend money on.
Right.
And I mean, it just dwarfs it. I'm not even talking about big federal expenditures. The whole enterprise is underfunded. Okay? I mean, I spend a quarter of my year writing grants for things like $200,000, $250,000, all right? That name an industry that can actually make progress in anything for that amount of money. If you're doing anything in industry, you got to put millions of dollars in something, you're not going to see anything come back in return. The whole, metastatic disease is one of my major things that I focus on now in terms of my research. We've written a lot of papers in the last few years in terms of understanding it. And it's definitely something important, but primary disease is important, tumor growth, irregularities, immunotherapy of cancer, immune modulation. I mean, I can give you a whole long list of things that are really important. The entire enterprise is grossly underfunded considering the impact on our health. I mean, we're talking about cancer in general, we're talking about something that 40% or so of us are going to die of, and yet we'd much rather spend money on, on other things than spend money on trying to save our own lives and the lives of people we love. And we can't forget that message, all right? And that's a message that we have to keep up front, no matter how many times I say it, and I've said it in the New York Times, and I've said it on TV, and I keep saying it, and then every time I say it, it's a surprise. We're not really getting the message out there, and I'd like to see more advocates involved in and it doesn't take a massive kind of sacrifice, $1.25 per American per month doubles the NCI budget. Is that such a huge sacrifice, I mean, I'm willing to put $250 in and cover somebody who doesn't have $1.25. So that the point of the matter is that why is this day different than other days is because of these scientific advances. We have the capabilities of doing extraordinary things, all right, in terms of collecting tissue, analyzing tissue, disseminating the results, doing the appropriate clinical trials. We're just not, as a nation, as a world, spending enough money to do it. We're spending money on other things, and everybody's got their own favorite other things they think is frivolous. But much of it really is frivolous, and if we really concentrate our efforts, we could knock this cancer right out. We're just not doing it.
And thank you to all of you for making time to spend with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.